I'm Ray, 31 years old, and I work in tech. This basically means my family sees me as their personal ATM. I don't wear fancy clothes, drive an expensive car, or talk about my income. I learned early on that money brings out a strange side in my family, especially my younger sister Tasha, who's 26. Tasha has always been the favored child, not because she earned it, but because she demanded it. She's a master at crafting a sob story when she needs help and acting like royalty when she gets her way. In high school, she avoided chores by claiming mental health issues. In college, she dropped out after 2 semesters and then spent 5 years finding herself, which mostly involved depleting every savings account my parents set up for her. When those ran dry, she moved back home rent-free, with my mum assuring me it would be temporary until she got back on her feet. That was 4 years ago. I live about 40 minutes away and try to maintain some distance. It's not that I don't care, but I've learned the hard way that boundaries are non-existent with my family. Give an inch, and they expect a mile. Still, I stayed in touch. I visited when I could, bought groceries occasionally, fixed things around the house, and even helped Tasha with her resume, though she never actually applied anywhere. Then, 2 weeks ago, something happened that I can't shake. I was out with a friend on a Saturday morning, grabbing coffee, when my bank sent a notification. A $900 transaction had just cleared. My stomach dropped. I hadn't bought anything close to that. I opened the app, suspecting fraud, and watched in real time as another $1,300 charge went through. Then $600, then $2,500, all from high-end retail stores I never frequented. I stared at the screen, hoping it would explain itself. Then I saw it. All transactions were tagged as Apple Pay from a location near my parents' neighborhood. I left my coffee half-finished and drove straight to their house. Tasha was on the couch in a silk robe, scrolling through her phone, looking like she'd just left a spa. Designer shopping bags were strewn across the living room floor, like a tacky influencer's unboxing video. Shoes, clothes, perfume, the whole spread. I stood in the doorway, phone in hand, my heart pounding in my ears. "Tasha," I said, my voice trembling, "what did you do?" She looked up, completely unfazed, and actually smiled. "Oh, that," she said, as if I'd asked about the weather. "It's not a big deal. You make more than enough. I just needed a few things." A few things. The total was $9,400. She had somehow gotten hold of my card, or at least the digital version, and gone on a shopping spree as if she'd won a game show. No remorse, no panic, just smug entitlement. I asked her calmly how she even got access. She shrugged. "Mum had your card from when you paid for her prescription last month. I just added it to my phone. Thought you wouldn't mind." "You thought I wouldn't mind?" She rolled her eyes as if I were being unreasonable. "You're always acting like money is sacred or something. You live alone, no kids, no mortgage. It's not like you're struggling." I didn't yell or scream. I just walked past her into the kitchen where my mum was pretending not to have heard a thing. "Mum," I said quietly, "did you know about this?" She turned, sighing as if I'd asked her to explain advanced calculus to a toddler. "Ray, honey," she said, "she made a mistake. You've always been the responsible one. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? She stole from me. She borrowed it. She didn't mean any harm. She didn't ask. She was going to tell you." I laughed. A hollow, exhausted laugh that comes when you realize you're alone in a room full of people who will never see your perspective. Tasha was now filing her nails, completely unconcerned. Mom started talking about how stressful Tasha's life had been lately, and how a little shopping was therapeutic. I left. I didn't argue or raise my voice. I just said, "I'll handle it." I went home, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at my account for a long time. I knew I could reverse some of the charges. Banks have fraud protection, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the money. It was about principle. It was about being taken for granted, repeatedly. So I started making a list. Every time I'd helped her out, every time I'd paid for groceries, gas, Uber rides, every digital transaction where I trusted them with my card, every favor that turned into an obligation. Then I opened my laptop. The next few hours were quiet, but focused. I submitted a fraud report. I shut down every card linked to my digital wallet. I pulled logs from all recent charges and flagged the ones she'd made. I contacted the stores, disputed what I could, and froze access to all shared payment methods, including the one I knew my mum had been sneakily using to pay the cable bill. But that wasn't all. I drafted an email to Tasha, nothing dramatic, just a clear list of what she'd spent, what I'd recovered, and the steps I was taking. Then I drafted another email, this one with a legal tone. I wasn't bluffing. A lawyer friend, owed me a favor, and I asked him to write up a formal cease and desist regarding unauthorized access and use of financial accounts. No threats, just professional language and consequences. By midnight, I had both emails scheduled, one from me, one with legal letterhead set to hit her inbox at 8 a.m. Then I sat back, stared at the ceiling, and thought about everything I'd tolerated over the years. The guilt trips, the manipulation, the way they talked about me as if I was just lucky to be financially stable, as if I hadn't worked every holiday for years, taken night classes, saved, invested, and built something on my own. I was done. I went to bed with my phone on silent. The next morning I woke up to a flurry of missed calls. Tasha, Mom, even my dad, who usually stayed out of these things. There were voicemails, texts, WhatsApp, messages, the whole circus, but I didn't check any of them right away. I just made coffee, sat down, and waited, because I knew at that moment, everything had changed. By the time I finally opened my messages, around 10 a.m. the damage had clearly been done. There were 13 missed calls from Tasha to voice messages, both of which I skipped, and a string of increasingly desperate texts. They started with confusion and quickly escalated into accusations. What is this? You're seriously threatening me with a lawyer for shopping. It was one day. You're rich. Get over yourself. Then, just as I was about to put the phone down, came the crowning insult. You'll regret doing this to your own sister. Mum's right. You've always thought you were better than us. I didn't reply. I'd said everything I needed to say in that email. A couple of hours later, I got a calmer text from my mum. Can we please talk before this gets worse? You're blowing things out of proportion. That line, blowing things out of proportion, stuck with me. I didn't respond right away, but I did take a long walk around the block, trying to keep my hands from shaking. It wasn't rage I felt anymore. It was something quieter and colder, like the kind of disappointment that sets in after you realize someone isn't going to change. I'd spent so many years giving them the benefit of the doubt, letting things slide, telling myself that family comes first, even when it meant burying my own needs. But standing out there on the sidewalk, hearing the buzz of my phone in my pocket, I realized something. They didn't need me to be generous. They expected it. Entitlement had become the norm. So, I made another call, not to them, but to the credit union where my sister had her account. I requested a formal record of every transfer she'd received from me over the past 2 years. Every quick loan, every "can you help me out? I swear I'll pay you next week." Turns out she'd gotten over $17,000 total from me, and she'd never paid a cent back. I compiled all of it into a file, the evidence of unauthorized purchases, the past transfers, the screenshots of her texts, even the one where she joked last year that she should just marry rich or steal Ray's pin. It was meant to be funny at the time. It didn't feel funny now. That night, I got a knock on my apartment door. I checked the peephole. It was Mum. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, heart thudding, staring at the woman who raised me and wondering how many times I'd excused things I shouldn't have. She knocked again, softer this time. "Ray, please, can we talk?" I opened the door a crack. She looked worn out, not angry, not even apologetic, just exhausted. She stepped back slightly when she saw my face. "I know you're upset," she said, "but this doesn't need to go any further. We're family. You don't sue your sister." I said nothing. She sighed, folding her arms as if she were the one being hurt here. "She's young, she made a mistake. She's 26, I said quietly, "and this wasn't a mistake. It was theft. She thought you'd be okay with it." I stared at her. "Would you be okay if someone did that to you?" Mom didn't answer. She just looked away, as if trying to recall the version of me that always caved when she talked like this. "You always help," she whispered. "You always do the right thing." "Yeah," I said. "And look where that got me." She shifted uncomfortably. "Ray, she's just not like you. She doesn't have what you have. You're punishing her for not being as successful." That hit a nerve. "I'm punishing her," I repeated, "for stealing my money and for not even pretending to be sorry." Mum looked like she wanted to say something more, maybe another guilt trip, maybe another excuse, but she didn't. She just sighed and said, "If you go through with this, you'll tear the family apart." I looked her in the eyes and said, "The family tore itself apart a long time ago. I just stopped pretending it didn't." She left without another word. I locked the door. That night, the silence in my apartment was deafening. No calls, no knocks, just quiet. It felt strange, like the calm after a storm when you know more lightning could still be coming. And then the next morning, I got another message. This one wasn't from Mum or Tasha, it was from an old friend of mine, someone who worked at a local paper. They'd seen a post Tasha made on social media, a long dramatic rant about toxic siblings and how money makes people think they're gods. She hadn't mentioned my name, but the details were so specific. Anyone who knew us would know exactly who she was talking about. I didn't reply or engage, but I saved the post because something inside me had changed, quietly but permanently. And as much as it broke my heart to admit it, I knew I wasn't done. The post didn't go viral or anything. It wasn't public, just a long half rant, half plea to her small corner of the internet. But it told me everything I needed to know. Tasha wasn't sorry, not even close. She was weaponizing sympathy, posing as a victim to people who didn't know the context, crying abuse and control because I refused to let her treat me like her personal piggy bank anymore. A few of her friends even commented things like, "Wow, that's so toxic, and family should never use money to manipulate." One of them wrote, "Cut him off, girl, you don't need that kind of negativity." I didn't comment or send screenshots. I didn't try to defend myself, but I kept reading. I needed to see how far she'd go. About halfway down, she wrote, "Some people can't stand when you don't bow down to them anymore. My brother thinks I owe him my dignity because he's more successful, but I'm done being silent." It was funny in a sad way, that line, done being silent, as if she'd ever once listened to anyone else, as if the dozen chances I'd given her, the money, the quiet grace I'd offered for years, meant nothing to her. The moment I set a boundary was the moment I became the villain. I closed the app and opened the file again. The PDF was 28 pages now, not just financial records and text messages, but voice notes, screenshots of times she admitted to buying things on my card just for now. Even the old Venmo notes that were supposed to be funny, "THX Sugar Broy strikes again, bless you our bank account, lol." It was all there, and it was time I did something with it. So I emailed my lawyer friend, Josh. Josh had been in my life since college, someone who knew what I'd been through with my family even before money was involved. He wasn't the kind of guy to rush into legal threats, and he'd warned me before. Once you go down this road, there's no pretending afterward that things are normal. But when I sent him the folder and told him I wanted to take formal action, he didn't hesitate. He called me that evening. "I read it all," he said. "You're not overreacting." "Thanks," I said quietly. "I just wanted to stop." "She's not going to stop," he said. "Not unless there's a consequence, and you've got plenty to work with here. Fraud, identity, misuse, theft. You could press charges." I paused. That word, charges, made my stomach twist. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because she was my sister. We talked for another hour. Josh said we could start with a formal demand letter, legal but not litigious. It would spell out the amount, document the misuse, and outline the next steps she'd have a chance to repay it or respond before anything more serious happened. I agreed. That night he drafted it, and the following morning I sent it. It went out at exactly 7 a.m., attached to a clean, professional email. Not angry, not bitter, just facts. I didn't hear anything that morning. Not a text, not a call. Around noon, I saw she deleted her post. By 3, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again 10 minutes later. Then again, I let it go. Then finally, a voicemail. I braced myself before listening, but nothing could have prepared me for the tone in her voice. It wasn't apologetic. It wasn't scared. It was furious. "You really went through with it," she snapped. "After everything I've done for this family, you're seriously trying to ruin my life because of a shopping mistake. You think this makes you some kind of hero. You're not. You're bitter. And one day when you're old and alone, maybe you'll realize money doesn't buy loyalty." Click. That was it. No sorry, no admission, just blame. And the worst part, I wasn't even surprised. That night, my mum called. "Ray," she said carefully, "can you come by? I think we need to talk in person." I almost said no. I almost blocked the number right there, but something told me I needed to go. Not for closure, not for peace, but for clarity. I needed to look my family in the face and see it for what it really was, not what I'd hoped it could be. So, I drove. The house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same creaky porch, same dented mailbox, same half-dead plants on the windowsill. But when I stepped inside, it felt colder than ever. Tasha was already there, sitting at the dining table with her arms crossed, wearing a hoodie and no makeup, as if trying to look smaller, more innocent. It was a performance. I knew that immediately. Mum was standing in the kitchen, nervously, drying a cup that didn't need drying. No one spoke at first. Then Mum said, "Before you say anything, just listen." And that's when everything shifted, because the real story, the one behind the money, the entitlement, the years of silent resentment, about to come out, and I wasn't ready for how far it would go. I stood there in the doorway, arms still at my sides, my coat half zipped. The tension in the air was so thick, I could hear the quiet hum of the refrigerator behind Mum, like it was the only thing breathing. Tasha sat at the dining room table with that look she always wore when things didn't go her way, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes filled with sharp silence. I didn't say anything. I waited. Mum motioned toward the table. "Sit," she said softly, like we were about to break bread and pray over it. I stayed standing. "Tasha has something she wants to say," Mum added, looking at her expectantly. Tasha's lips tightened. "No, you wanted me to say it," she muttered. "I don't have anything to apologize for. I already said what I needed to." Mum's eyes widened. "Tasha, I didn't steal, okay?" she snapped, standing now, her voice louder. "He gave you that card months ago. It was saved on the family tablet. I thought he'd taken it off. It wasn't like I hacked into his account." I stared at her, finally speaking. "You used it 12 times in one afternoon across 3 different stores. And then you smiled at me when I confronted you because I thought you'd understand," she snapped back. "You're always preaching about responsibility, about how money doesn't define you. So why does this matter so much? It's just money to you." "No," I said, quieter than she expected. "It's not just money, it's respect, it's trust, it's years of me being taken for granted by people who think family is a free pass. You think you're so above everyone," she said, her eyes narrowing, "because you got a job in tech and moved out, and now you think you're better than us." "I never said I was better than anyone," I said, trying not to raise my voice, "but I'm allowed to not be a doormat." Mom stepped in, raising her hands. "Can we please not do this like children? This is exactly why I wanted you both here, so we could talk, not attack." I turned to her. "Mum, if this were anyone else, any friend, any co-worker, you'd call it what it is, theft. But because it's Tasha, you're bending over backward to excuse it again." She didn't know what she was doing, Mum said, her voice rising with desperation. "Yes, she did," I said, now calm in that bone-deep way that comes only after you've stopped hoping someone will change. "She knew what she was doing. She's always known. And you've always helped her believe there are no consequences." Mom's mouth opened as if she wanted to defend herself, but she didn't speak. I could see the struggle in her eyes, between loyalty and denial. Tasha scoffed. "This is pathetic. You're seriously going to drag us into court over this?" "Over one day of shopping." "It wasn't one day," I said. "It was every day I said yes and you took a little more. Every time you lied and called it a mistake. Every time I helped and you laughed behind my back. You've been building a debt for years. This is just the first time you got the receipt." Tasha went silent. Her hands clenched the edge of the chair she had risen from, but she didn't sit. Mum sighed heavily. "So what happens now, Ray? Are you just going to disappear from the family over this?" "No," I said. "I'm going to set boundaries and stick to them." "That means suing your sister?" she asked bitterly. "That means holding her accountable," I said. "I sent the letter. She has a choice. Either she pays it back quietly, or we take it to court." "You think that's going to fix anything?" Tasha asked. "You think suing your sister makes you righteous?" "No," I said. "But it might finally make me free." Tasha rolled her eyes and stormed off down the hallway. A door slammed. I stood there with my mother. The silence now not so much tense as hollow. "I tried," she said softly, looking down. "I know you did," I replied. "But trying isn't the same as changing." She looked up at me, and I could see something in her face that hadn't been there before. Maybe fear, maybe regret, maybe the slow realization that the glue she thought was keeping this family together was actually just tape, and it had worn thin. "I just wanted you two to stay close," she whispered. "We were never close," I said. "Not really. I was just easier to lean on." The drive home was quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt a strange sense of peace. The kind that comes not from winning, but from finally stopping the fight you've been having with yourself for years. The fight to stay connected to people who drain you. The fight to keep forgiving people who never ask for forgiveness. The fight to prove your worth in a family that only sees you as a resource. A week passed, then 2, and then one morning I woke up to an email. Subject, repayment agreement. Tasha had replied. No apology, no admission of guilt, but attached was a PDF, a signed document agreeing to pay back the full amount over time. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Josh. He handled the rest. I never heard from her again. My mum sent a few texts over the next few weeks. Small, neutral things. A picture of the dog, a reminder about Dad's birthday. I answered with simple, One-liners, nothing harsh, nothing emotional. Eventually, even those stopped. It wasn't an explosion, it was just silence. But in that silence, I found space. I traveled for the first time in a while. Started a side project I'd been putting off. I met new people, reconnected with old ones. I learned how to say no without guilt, and most of all, I learned this. Family doesn't mean you owe them everything. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse or rewriting reality. It means showing up when it matters, not just when it's convenient or profitable. It means respect. It means boundaries. And if someone can't offer that, then maybe they were never really family to begin with. Sometimes freedom doesn't come from escaping strangers. It comes from standing up to the ones who know you best and still choose to use you. And I'll never let it happen again.